Sephardic-Turkish Style Baked Okra in Tomato Sauce, Bamya con Tomat, or Kimbombo. It's known by many names, but it's also known as being absolutely delicious. Sally that girl in the kitchen.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally That Girl in the Kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make Sephardic-Turkish style baked okra in tomato sauce. Baked okra. Now, don't freak out and think okra is so slimy. No, there is absolutely no slime at all in this recipe. It is absolutely perfect, and I'm going to make it the way my Sephardic-Turkish grandparents would have made it, of course, with minor modifications because, well, I like to make recipes my own, but it's still quite classic and exactly what you would expect out of a Sephardic Turkish Kimbombo, Bamya, okra, however you want to call it. So my grandparents who spoke Ladino would have called this Bamya con Tomat, or they would have called it Kimbombo, but they spell that with a K instead of a QU. Like most words in Ladino, the QU gets replaced by a K. So whether you know this as Kimbombo, as okra, as Bamya, and I know there are other names depending on the country, molondrong, you are going to love it. And this is the classic Sephardic Turkish style with a little bit of a Sally That Girl in the Kitchen spin. And I'm super excited to teach you how to make it. So let's not wait another second and let's get started.
For today's recipe, you will need 2 medium yellow onions, a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, 30 ounces of whole baby okra, which you can purchase frozen, and it's so much easier to work with it that way. But be sure to buy the baby okra as it is nice and tender and you'll have no slime. It's going to be perfect. 28 ounces of diced tomatoes, which I am going to be using from a can. 2 teaspoons of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground black pepper, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, the juice of 1 large lemon, and 2 tablespoons of either ceylon, which is date syrup, or you can substitute that with a tablespoon of dark brown sugar. So my grandmothers would likely have not even added onion powder, possibly not even black pepper, really just salt and the tomato and the onion and the olive oil, and of course the lemon juice. But I like to add a little extra seasoning, and then I also like to add a little touch of sweetness to balance out the acidity that both the tomato and the lemon bring to this recipe. But of course it's completely optional. If you rather not add the ceylon or the brown sugar, then you can just go ahead and omit it if you don't want to add it. But I like that little touch of sweetness, and I'm going to be using ceylon because I love that natural source of sweetness, plus it brings almost a molasses type flavor. I absolutely love it. But of course, if you don't have it on hand, you can use dark brown sugar instead. You will also need a cutting board and a knife. I am using a lemon squeezer, but of course you can squeeze your lemon by hand. You'll need a large knife, some measuring spoons, and I'm going to be using a chopper to chop up my onions, but of course you could also just chop those up small with your knife. You're going to need a wet measuring cup, a can opener, and you'll need some type of a spoon to transfer the okra into the baking dish and something to stir with. I'm going to be using a wooden spatula, and you'll need a medium-sized baking dish. Mine is 11 inches by 8.5 inches, and of course some oven mitts. And finally, you'll need a medium-sized pot with a lid. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is slice your yellow lemon, and you're going to want to squeeze the juice out of both sides. You want the juice from the entire lemon. Then you're going to go ahead and peel and mince your onions. You want to cut those onions into small pieces. As I said, I'm using this chopper because it just makes my life a little bit easier. I cut my onions into a few pieces, and then I also get out my frustrations by slamming down the chopper, and then the work is done for me. Then add your 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil into your medium-sized pot, And then bring over those onions that you have chopped, and you're going to add them all right into your pot. Just make sure to get all of that in. This is going to bring tons of flavor to your okra, bamya, kimbombo. And so I'm just going to give that a little bit of a stir. I kind of want to just coat them with that olive oil. And then I'm going to go ahead and put my heat on. I'm going to turn my stove on to medium. And I'm going to cook these onions for about 5 minutes. All I'm looking to do is sweat the onions. I don't necessarily need to brown them because this is going to be finished off in the oven. I just want to start the cooking process and make those onions sweat. And during the 5 minutes, of course, you don't have to stir the entire time. Just come in every so often, give it a little stir. Just make sure all of the onions are getting exposed to the heat of the pan and just getting a little bit of love. So you'll notice that at no moment I told you to defrost or take your bamya out of the freezer, because we're going to add that mini okra straight into our hot pot frozen. We don't even have to thaw these, which is why I love working with frozen mini okra. You don't have to trim the tops. You don't have to worry about them being washed. These are ready to be cooked. These are already trimmed and they're super tender. So I added them right in, and then right on top of that, I'm going to come in with my 2 teaspoons of salt, half a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of onion powder. And then right on top of those dry seasonings, I'm going to add the juice of that lemon that I had squeezed earlier. And then I'm coming in with my 28 ounces of diced tomatoes, the entire can, juice and all. You don't want to strain it, you just want to pour in the entire can. My grandmothers, of course, would have diced their tomatoes by hand. So now I'm coming in with my 2 tablespoons of Ceylon. This is, as I said, my little added touch. I like a little bit of sweetness to balance the acidity from the tomatoes and from the lemon. And I love Ceylon. It's just such a great natural sweetener, and it's good for you. It's just perfect. But of course, if not, you could substitute that with your tablespoon of dark brown sugar instead, or of course, omit it completely. That's totally up to you. And then just give this all a good stir. I just want to combine those seasonings, that bit of Ceylon, just bring everything together. And then I'm going to give my Kimbombo, my Bamya, my okra an opportunity to come to a boil. So once I see that that sauce is bubbling, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a stir, and now it's ready to be covered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my lid on it, but I'm going to allow my lid to vent, and then I'm going to be cooking this only for about 10 minutes or until your bamya is fork tender. And now is a good time to preheat your oven so that it's ready to go. And we're just going to set our oven to 400 degrees, making sure we have a rack placed in the center. And now look at how absolutely gorgeous my okra is already looking. Look at those beautiful colors. So I'm pretty sure this is ready. I'm going to turn it off and I am going to test it to just make sure they are fork tender. And yeah, look at the fork. It just doesn't even pick up the bamya. It just goes right through my kimbombo, my beautiful okra. It's just so nice and soft. This is ready to go on to the next step. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer my mini okra into my baking dish. And why am I doing this? Because this is a baked okra recipe after all. So I have all my okra, my beautiful tomatoes, my onions. It's already smelling incredible. And we're still not even done because we're going to bake this to help those flavors really marry and caramelize, and the okra is going to get a little more golden brown, and it's just going to be absolutely yummy. If you've never had this, you're in for quite a treat. That combination of flavors, the lemon, the tomato, the onions, and of course that tender okra with no slime. You have my word. They are not going to be slimy. So you just pop that in on a center rack, and we're going to set a 40-minute timer. We want this to bake for at least 40 minutes because we want to make sure this caramelizes and just really comes together. It's going to be well worth the wait. And here you have it. You see how it got just a little roasty on top, a little more color. The tomatoes and onions and even the okra itself just got a touch more color. And believe me, color is flavor. It's going to be so delicious. So enough admiring. I cannot wait to crack into this. And as I said earlier, this is so good hot right out of the oven, but it's also delicious at room temperature, or you can serve it cold. You can serve it as a side dish. It's a perfect vegetable to serve with any protein. And of course, it's also good when you're serving a selection of little salads, even cold salads. You can serve it hot, cold, however you want, and it is absolutely delicious. I love it cold, straight from the fridge. It is super, super tasty no matter how you serve it. I know you're gonna love it. Okay, so enough. I'm trying to pick and choose and get some tomatoes and onions. I just want to make sure I have a little bit of everything on my plate, and I'm going to give this a little taste. I cannot wait. I am literally salivating, or salivating, I should say. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to give this a bite. And imagine if it was tender before it went in, it is even more tender. So, so delicious. The baby okra holds its shape, but it's nice and soft. So, so good. It's got a touch of tartness from the lemon, that amazing tomato and onion, and the seasonings. Very simple seasonings. That's how my grandmother's cooked, but very, very flavorful. The combination of flavors is absolutely divine. So crazy good. You are going to love it.
So how absolutely delicious does this Sephardic-Turkish style baked okra look? By finishing it off in the oven, those flavors just really come together. Those onions and those tomatoes just finish caramelizing. That okra gets just a little toasty, and it's really absolutely satisfying. And as I said earlier, you can eat this warm out of the oven. You can serve it at room temperature, or you can eat it cold out of the fridge. I love it cold. It's like a little refreshing side salad, or salatim, as they say. Just a couple of different salads with your meal or before a meal. Just super, super tasty. Very healthy, of course. And there's no slime. You saw it is absolutely yummy by using that baby okra, that tender, tender okra. There's absolutely no slime, and it is super flavorful with those tomatoes and onions that become caramelized with that okra in the oven. So, so good. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's recipe. And of course, if you have, don't forget to follow Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on X, Snapchat, and on TikTok. And of course, if you're not subscribed right here on YouTube, stop what you're doing and go over and subscribe and touch that little notification bell so that you get notified every time I put up a new delicious different recipe. And I already have hundreds of recipes on my page, which I know you're going to enjoy. Make sure you explore, check out the different playlists. I know you're going to love them. And of course, if you ever have a question, shoot me a message, preferably through my Facebook or Instagram pages. I really try to get back to everyone. So if you ever have a question or a comment about my video, please go ahead and reach out. I love hearing from you. I love knowing that you're watching, and I love knowing that you're preparing my food and enjoying it. So once again, I just want to take a moment to thank you so, so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.